I can put you in the mindset that this is our chance to really bless not only our students, but also our broader community. The region that we're in right here, so the students that are down in Annandale and that area, West Virginia. But also, as we saw last year, we had a number of students come in from California. We had some come from North Carolina, I think. Are you videoing me?
Georgia, yes.
Are you
For
videoing?
people who can't come.
That's a great idea.
I didn't sign any forms about being
Well.
videoed. Okay. Well, I'll have my
What does
lawyer.
that mean exactly?
Yeah, what is that?
What's going to happen?
It's a chance to really bless everybody. Yes, it's a lot of work, but yes, it can be a lot of fun. It can be a great chance to get to know a lot of new families. Kim has been telling me, because she has been able to go to Night Talk more than I have in the last few years. She's got a whole network of people all over the country now that she knows from that. And it starts with these kinds of events here locally. Yeah, come on in. So, anyway, if that wasn't your mindset coming in, I ask you just set aside all your other stuff and let's just think of it that way. Glad you guys could come. So let's just open in prayer. I want to give this and all the tournament stuff to the Lord, and we'll take it from there. Lord, we bow our hearts, we bow our minds, we bow our wills to you, because this is all about you. And we don't ask that you just bless what we're doing, but we ask that you'll convey what you're doing, and then we can just join in with you. It seems like you want us to put this tournament together, and so here we are to get organized to do that. To do that, we're going to need people to get a vision and to step up and do things. And so I ask you to start working in people's hearts, and that you'll raise up the right people for the different jobs we've got. And we pray, Father, that the tournament that's planned for March, that it wouldn't just be an event, but it would be a life-changing event. That you would bring the right people together, that you would speak to us through that event and through all the planning as well. We give it to you, Lord. We want it to be all about you. We ask that you'll guide our discussions tonight in Jesus' name.
It's interesting that you mentioned that it's life-changing. We pray that it would be a life-changing event. I know for a fact 2 students that are at Patrick Henry now this year, because they came to our tournament last year, and they actually were not intending to go to Patrick Henry, and their course is forever changed. I mean, I know these boys, and they're amazing, and I just know that God is going to use that school in their life and on their path for amazing things because they got to our tournament. And I just think that's phenomenal. So it is. I think it's it has the potential to change lives.
That certainly does. All right, so I'm going to level set everybody. Quick show of hands, who has never set foot in a tournament before, have no idea what this is going to be like? Okay, good. Well, these slides are for you. These first couple are for you, at least. So what is it? This is our game day. This is what everybody comes every week for. You already got the talk at the orientation sessions that if you try to avoid doing tournaments, meaning like your students participating, they're going to be stunted. They're never going to get past that initial ability to sharpen their skills. Now, what is it really like once you get into it? Well, first of all, it's going to be a big gathering of young people and their families and their siblings, and it looks kind of like a church picnic inside is what it kind of looks like. And so it's going to be from the area. As you know, there's only so many in this area, so usually everybody comes. And we're increasingly trying to get exposure so that people will come from across the nation. One of the great things about Stowe is you can go to any tournament you want to. And whether it's true or not is another story, but people on the West Coast think that it's easier to win on the East Coast. And so they'll invest in airline tickets to fly out here and compete so they can get check marks and beat us. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. You'll see a lot of different people. It is a full day, both days. Fortunately, the way we put it on is speech is all in one day, and then you're done. Come on up, Debbie. And debate is all on one day. And I just said those backwards because actually debate is going to be on Friday, and speech will be on Saturday. But they are self-contained. Not all tournaments are like that, but that's the way we do it, so that you're completely done if students are done, depending on what they're doing. As you probably know by now, it is an incredible learning experience, not only for the students, but also for the parents. Those of you that got to go to my little judging primer, this will be your chance to put it into action. Actually, you should have done it before then anyway. So you'll learn a lot. And then, as I alluded to earlier, the students across the board, they remember these. They remember the people they meet. These become their pals. They email, and these are the people. There's probably lots of stories of people that end up marrying the people they met. So these are
That never
significant.
happens.
That would never happen. And so it is a great way for us to bless our students, to bless students that are inside and outside of our area, and as well the families and the judges. There's a whole lot of people that get involved in this, and if it's done right, it doesn't have to be fancy, but if it's done right, it gives a lot of people exposure to something that maybe they've never been to before. So that's our hope in trying to get organized here. So let's talk about what the layout is like. So I'm going to pretend for a second that we were doing a tournament in this church. We've never actually done one in this church, and I don't think the layout of this church would actually work very well for it. But if we did, this is what it would look like. We would have cleared out all of these chairs and stuck them along the walls. And everybody would show up at about 7 in the morning, and they would all be the students would all be wearing suits, and they would all just kind of start gathering and congregating and talking to each other. A lot of nervous energy and so forth. There'd be a little table of food over here, and then we would be waiting for the action to start. The way the action starts is when the rounds start. And whether it's a speech round or a debate round, it's a debate tournament, it's a little bit different. But think of it as central gathering place. Everybody's waiting. They figure out what rooms they go to. The judges come in. They figure out where they're going to be judging. And then they disperse. And they go do a round. And it's quiet in the gathering place for about an hour and a half. And then as students finish, they start trickling back in, and the volume starts to raise again, and everybody's hungry, and they're running around sharing germs with each other, and then it happens again. They go out. So it does that 6 times throughout the day, and then by the end of the day, and it does take all day long, we will be winnowing down who the competitors are to a finals round based on how they did on the preliminaries. There'll be a final round for all of the events, and then you'll get back together in your big gathering place, and you'll have an award ceremony, and then you go home. And then if that was on Friday, you'll do it all again on Saturday for the next tournament. So if you haven't done it already, just go ahead and block out Friday and Saturday, March 8 and March 9, because we're going to need all of you, plus those that aren't even here, to bring this together. Okay? So as I said, I kind of already covered a lot of this, so let me just check. Oh, and then oftentimes, even though it's already late, everybody's a glutton for punishment because they've just made all these great new friends. They'll go out to dinner somewhere at like 9:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30, and they'll eat until midnight, and then they'll go home even more tired than they were before. But the students will be begging you to do that, so just go ahead and plan on it, that you're going to be out even later if you want to bless your students with that. Okay, everybody kind of get the gist of it, especially those that have never been to one. I wanted you to kind of understand that. Okay. All right, so let's talk about speech tournaments first. I am speaking about this backwards, I'm sorry. Speech is going to be on Saturday, and debate is going to be on Friday, but let's talk about speech first. So speech, as you probably, even the new people have figured out by now, there's a lot of different categories of speech. And so there are what are called patterns. They are just clumps of events. So as you can see, typically there are 2 patterns. And it's not always broken out this way, but this is how it was last year. Pattern A was duo, expose, extemp, humorous, original, oratory, and persuasive. Now, does anybody have a student that's doing more than one of those this year? Of those ones I just read? Okay. So what that means is all of those are going to be running at the same time, and you're wondering, how is my student going to do multiple events in the same round? Well, the way they do it is they manage their time, and they go to one, and then they go to the other. And there are some who do 4 and 5 and 6 events, and they are just nonstop the entire round, and then they come back, and then they go to pattern B, and they do all of those too, and then they come back. So depending on how many your students are doing, they might have one, they might have none, they might have multiple within a single pattern.
Typically, you can only do 5 at a tournament.
Okay, you can only do 5 at a tournament. Okay, there's going to be 3 preliminary rounds of each pattern. So how many total rounds will there be in a speech, and then 1 finals round. So how many total rounds will there be in a speech tournament? This isn't a trick question.
6 plus 1.
6 plus 1, 7. That's right. So there's 3 of each pattern. So it'll go pattern A, pattern B, that's round 1. Pattern A, pattern B, that's round 2. Pattern A, pattern B, round 3. Then it's like dinner time by the time you've done all that. And then there's a finals round. Okay? When it's all said and done and you get to the awards, the top 40% of each event will get a check mark. That's what, if you have any aspiration, your student has any aspiration of going to nationals, they have to get 2 check marks in each event that they want to qualify for to go to nationals. This is why the West Coast people fly here, because they think it's easier to get a check mark sometimes. Sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. So that's what the award ceremony will acknowledge, is the top 40% that got check marks. And I mentioned this because there are some jobs that involve doing like tabulation and all the numbers side. There's this thing called speech ranks that maybe you haven't even heard of before. Actually, I have a chart on it. But it basically takes all the standings of the tournament and uploads it to a website called Speech Ranks. And it's a voluntary thing, but most tournaments within STOA, and I think NCFCA does the same thing, will upload it. And it just creates like a national leaderboard of all students in Christian homeschool debate and speech of how they're doing. And I've just found with my sons that have done it, and maybe Treasurer's doing it now too, they keep track of it. They want to see where they are. It's like, how am I ranked nationally? It's a way for them to know what they're walking into if they do make it to nationals or whatever. They can keep track of their friends. They can give each other a hard time when they have a bad round. All those kinds of things are available in Speech Ranks. So speaking of Speech Ranks, this is just straight from their website. It's open to all Christian homeschool forensics. I think they do speech as well. Yeah, speech. So they claim that they are 1,300 tournaments around the country, upload their results, and it does have a leaderboard. This is the leaderboard right now. I just copied this last night, and you can see what information it presents. So one of the jobs at the end of the tournament is for somebody to upload all that data to the website, and so we do publish that so people can tell how they're doing. I'm going to take a pause. I've been talking for a while. You can interrupt me anytime. Any questions so far? You getting a feel for tournaments, especially those that have never done it before? Are you confused? I don't want you to be confused, because it's really hard to get you to understand what a job is if you have no idea what this tournament thing is going to be like. Any questions? Okay. All right, so what does a tournament schedule look like? Well, as you can see, it starts early and ends late. This was our schedule last year, so I took this straight off of our website. It was at Patrick Henry last year. That was the first time we had ever done it at Patrick Henry. We learned a lot of lessons. We learned some things that did well. We learned some things that we won't do again this year. The learning curve should be much smaller this year than last year. And we've learned some mistakes that we won't make again. But essentially, families show up between 7 and 7:30. It's going to be a big mob of people show up. They're going to get checked in, and then hopefully promptly at 7:30, we'll have prayer and announcements. And then you'll notice 7:45, round 1A. That's pattern A, round 1. So those A pattern events that I told you about a couple slides ago, all of them would compete. And you can see it's a time slot of about 1 hour and 45 minutes. And as you get done, there's usually a little bit of time at the end of it. That's your chance to catch your breath and get something to eat, because round B starts immediately at 9:30. We do have a window of we had a window of time for lunch. Now, one of the benefits of doing it at Patrick Henry is we don't have to deal with food. Usually that is a big part of what. Usually that's a big part of the jobs are trying to deal with all the food for everybody. Patrick Henry actually requires that we use their food, and they give us a really good discount on the food, so it saves a lot of logistics that they deal with that. Okay? So it's now lunchtime, and we're starting round 2. You're going to have 2A, 2B. We intersperse some campus tours, because Patrick Henry does that as an exchange. It's a chance for them to meet students. There's 3A, there's round 3B. So those are all the preliminary rounds. And then what happens is the finals kick off at 7, and the award ceremony is supposed to start at 9. It started really, really late last year. And then the awards are we're done by about 10 o'clock. So it is a long day.
As judges and parents judges, are we supposed to, I know that we're supposed to judge as many rounds as our student does, and in this one we'll probably be judging as much as possible. Last year, I think some of the problem was if we were judging like the back-to-back ones,
Right.
because we may not have had time to finish filling out our ballots on the first one.
Right.
Are we expected to judge round A and then round 1B?
So you'll see when I get to the jobs, one of the jobs is judge recruitment, judge management. If you've got plenty of judges, then that doesn't happen. Last year we didn't have plenty of judges. It was a bit of a crisis of judges. And so that's why it created that uncomfortable situation where people were having to do back-to-back. But usually you're still finishing up all your ballots from round 1A when round 1B starts.
Right.
And so if you've got plenty of judges, which hopefully we will this year, then you can skip round 1B, kind of catch your breath, and then go to round 2A, or maybe watch your student for round 1B and then just be ready for 2A. Okay? Any questions on the flow of a tournament? All right, let's talk about debate. Debate, significantly simpler because there's only one event. We're only doing parliamentary debate for our tournament. There are other tournaments that are doing team policy. There's no LD, unfortunately. We're only doing one event, so it is many, many less students. You don't have the chaos of 10 different events all happening throughout the day. So it's much more simple, and it's kind of, I guess it's also maybe a good warm up for, since this comes first, it's a good warm up for the second day. And unlike the other one, there are 6 preliminary rounds. So your students that compete in this will do 6 preliminaries, and then if they make it to finals, they will have 1 finals round. So still 7 rounds, except this one these are all parliamentary debate. You will hear a term called power matching, and it is this super complicated algorithm that I haven't ever untangled. Probably involves like calculus and who knows what else. But what they try to do is, as the preliminary rounds results start coming in, they're tabulating that in a machine. There's this machine going on in the background that kind of makes all of this hum. And if you ever hear the term tab, it's not talking about a diet soda, it's talking about tabulation. And tabulation is taking all the scores from each round and figuring out where everybody's going to be in the next round. And it's deconflicting, like don't put the same teams against each other, get a different judge, power match. So the idea of power matching is that once you have enough understanding, once the machine has enough understanding of who's doing well and who isn't, it tries to match people evenly so that really strong teams go against almost equally strong teams. So that you don't have blowout rounds where the top team is going against the weakest team, and it's just, it's not fun for anybody. So usually, I think the way we did it last year was we did 2 rounds where it's just randomly selected, and then starting in round 3, they're taking the results of those 2 random rounds to start trying to figure out who the strongest teams are. And usually by the time you get to round 6, which is the last of the preliminary rounds, you're narrowing in on who are your finalists going to be, and that's when you have the finals round, which comes after that. There are awards as well, so you'll see that in the schedule. The awards go. There's awards given for the best teams. So this is a two-person event, and so you'll see a first, second, and third team for how well they did in terms of winning the rounds. So each round there's a winner picked, and based on your record, that's how you figure out who wins. And again, tabulation is the one doing all the math to figure that out for you. Additionally, because each individual student is being scored on their ability to speak, there are also awards given to the top speakers. Now, sometimes the best speakers are come from the same teams that won, so sometimes you'll see the same people win. But oftentimes the speaker points, the speaking awards go to different people than the teams that won. So it's just another way to recognize excellence in a debate round. But again, it's much, much simpler. There's only one event. Award ceremony and speech goes a long time because you got 10 events that you have to go through. Again, the same top 40% will get check marks, and that's only based upon the team records. The speaker points awards don't count for check marks, so that doesn't affect anything. But the top 40% of the teams will get a check mark for nationals, and then again, all the results get uploaded to SpeechRanks. Here's what a debate tournament schedule looks like. This was last year. So same check-in time at 7 a.m., announcements, and then the parley round starts. These rounds are a little bit shorter. You'll see they're about an hour and 20 minutes apiece. And they are back-to-back. Boom, 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 all day long. So you're not done with all the preliminary rounds until 5:30, time for dinner. We start cleaning up, and then finals round is at 6:30. And then awards, we were done a little bit earlier, I think. Did it work out that way? I think we were done. Or is this the one?
Right on time.
Mm-hmm.
This one was on time. So one thing you'll notice about this, and any of our, and we do have two tournament directors previous. We've got Beth here and Rhonda here. Rhonda did speech last year, and Beth did debate with her husband, and your husband did as well. They were the guinea pig tournament directors at Patrick Henry, and so they have a lot of scars from that. But they also have a lot of lessons learned from that. And so once we figure out who's going to do what this year, then we'll pass on a lot of that knowledge. But one thing you'll notice here is it's all sequential. So what happens if this round doesn't kick off on time? It means that everything below it doesn't kick off in time, because there's really not a whole lot of buffer in here if something goes wrong. So you will notice when we get into tournament day, the tournament director is got this drum beat like, come on, come on, come on, come on, we're going to start on time, because if it doesn't, it snowballs. Just imagine if each round starts 10 minutes late, by the time you get done, it's really, really late. So that's just one of the rigors of doing a tournament. Okay, so I've alluded to this already. We should be signing the contract next week for Patrick Henry. They already know we're coming. They've already blocked it off. They've already told somebody else no that wanted to use the facility that weekend. And so it is going to be March 8 and March 9. Debate first, speech second. It's right there at the college. Does everybody know where the college is? I forgot a lot of you don't live right here locally, but many of you probably pass it on the way here if you don't. And this is my blessing. All of you get to contribute. Like, there's nobody that doesn't get to contribute. Everybody gets to contribute.